What if the reason why men did not show up to that march, to that GBV march, wasn't that we don't care? What if we've been hiding our own scars? What if we've been so focused on one type of violence that we completely ignored the other? What if the very same spaces we've created to fight abuse are the same spaces that silence half of the victims? Because I need you to stay with me here, because at the end of this video, you understand why the not all men conversation is more complicated than anyone wants to admit, and why we might be failing the entire generation of silent sufferers. Hi guys, I'm Tato from BothoWellness. The not all men is dying. You see it on social media, and honestly, I don't understand why. Because I don't understand why it had to die the way that it did. In my last video, where I called out to men for not showing up to the GBV march, I showed up. I went searching for answers, and what I discovered had just completely not just didn't surprise me, it completely shattered everything I thought I knew about domestic violence in South Africa. Here's what I kept noticing. When we talk about gender-based violence in South Africa, when do you ever see women as perpetrators of abuse? Do women not abuse men? I mean, I've seen that calling Black Label ad on Facebook, you know that one, where they're basically calling out men for men to stand up against women-based violence. And then there's the Women for Change movement, which I highly respect for creating their own marketing campaigns. And even our South African government almost exclusively almost exclusively focuses on women as victims. But here's the thing I kept noticing. When people at corporations, the government, when we all talk about gender-based violence, the conversation is always centered around the physical kind, because that kind of violence is clear. It's visible. You can see the bruise, you can see the photograph, you can photograph a wound, and this leaves a devastating non-physical, emotional, financial, and psychological abuse, with psychological manipulation out in the shadows. And that's exactly where male victims feel silenced. See, in South Africa, the narrative is always about how women are victims and how men should protect women, but not really about how men are victims. And I think that's because the way we see abuse is wrong, or at least one-sided. So I started digging, and I came across of the work of Dr. Dutton, who is a Canadian clinical psychologist who spent decades, 20 years, studying intimate partner violence. He's best known for his relationship conflict and why people become violent, and how both women and men contribute to harmful patterns. So according to Dr. Dutton, we fundamentally misunderstand domestic violence because it focuses almost on the physical harm. We ignore the emotional and verbal aggression, and which is really the kicker, which can come from really one male or women, But here's the kicker. Because physical harm is easier to see, and because police often assume men are the main aggressors, men are more likely to be arrested or blamed, or even cases where conflict is mutual, or where we're primarily the victim. And then there's Jordan Peterson. Love him or hate him, his perspective here matters. He says men and women both show aggression, both fundamentally and in different ways. Men are more likely to use direct and physical aggression. Women are more likely to use indirect aggression through emotional manipulation and social pressure. He believes that both forms matter equally, but society only focuses exclusively on the physical side. So we miss the physical harm men experiences and the ways women can also act aggressively. This brought me back to my last video, the GBV march. I was disappointed that men did not show up. I also so disappointed that women mostly showed up. And I thought more men and women could have been there to show support. But now I'm asking a different question. Before we ask men to speak up when we're being abused, shouldn't we ask ourselves if we're creating a safe space for women to be vulnerable? Men feel like the victims. They don't know where to voice their emotions, where to be vulnerable, where to admit they're hurting. And get this, I was having a conversation about men not showing up to the peaceful march, and one guy told me that his girlfriend told me he couldn't go. Why? Because he would be exposed to all the beautiful women who showed up. Yes, there were beautiful women there at the march, but imagine not being able to march against something so serious, so life-threatening, because it might threaten your relationship. And that's control. That's the form of abuse. That's a form of abuse and shame, and nobody's talking about it. And hold on. So before we continue, I want to share something that's been weighing on me. So there's a book called Men Don't Cry that's been written by a woman named Khanyi. She wrote it because she's been witnessing something that changed her forever. She watched a man unalive himself. She saw a train hit him. His head tore all over his body. Looked like a piece of paper blowing away in the wind. And that moment didn't just go away with her. It stayed with her. Not just like a regular memory, but like a scar that never heals. So she wrote Men Don't Cry to explore why men reach that point, why men suffer in silence until it becomes unbearable, why they feel like they have nowhere to run. If we're talking about something that resonates with you, if you want to understand the depth of male pain and why men have become silent victims, I've linked Khanyi's book in the description below. It's a perspective we desperately need to hear. Now, let's move back to the video. Let's talk about what we actually can do about this. Because here's the thing I've landed after all of this. The conversation against gender-based violence is incomplete, if not wrong. Because we're not protecting women less by acknowledging that men suffer too. We're actually building a more honest, more comprehensive understanding of how abuse works in relationships. Men are silent victims because they're not believed when they speak up. They are arrested when they're called for help, or at least mocked when they show vulnerability. There's almost no shelters or resources for them. Society tells men to man up instead of offering support. And if we want men to show up to GBV marches, if we want them to be allies, we need to acknowledge that many of them are victims themselves. We need to create spaces where men can say, I'm abused, without being laughed at, without them being dismissed. Because this isn't about men. This isn't about the not all men. This is about all victims, all forms of abuse. All people deserve safety and dignity and healing. So I'm asking you, how do we create that safe space? How do we make room for male vulnerability without diminishing the very real struggles that women face? Please drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. And also please check out Khanyi's book, Men Don't Cry, in the description, because understanding starts with listening to stories we've never heard before. If you want to see more videos on mental health, mindfulness, and social issues that contribute to our society, please subscribe to our BothoWellness YouTube channel, and please follow the Facebook group and the Facebook page, where we can continue this conversation together and continue to support each other. I'm Tato from BothoWellness. Thanks guys for watching and staying curious. Thanks guys for listening. Thanks guys. Peace. Oh yeah. Before I say peace, thanks guys for being able to see things differently. Okay, peace. See you in the next one.